All right, we are back on the Connected Design podcast. Although I feel like we should make this an industry agnostic podcast, name it for those purposes, because we're about to have some fun. Mr. Ted Green, appreciate you taking the time and joining us. Founder, CEO, what's your title du jour over there at Strata-con and Strata-gee?
I mostly, for Strata-gee, I go with Chief Content Creator. For Strata-con, which is my marketing consulting company, my title there is technically president, but, whatever you want to call me.
Right.
Just,
Dear friend.
just be sure to call me.
Yeah, right. Dear friend, and to your face. How about that too? Right. Oh, I appreciate you taking the time and joining us. I'm looking forward to this. I think we're going to have a lot of fun because I just know that just our phone calls between, I don't think we've ever done one together in any of my stops, but the phone calls we have always end up, into some really great conversations. So appreciate you jumping in and doing this with us. And, I look forward to whatever we get into here in the next little
bit. Well, thank you for inviting me. And I'm very excited, I don't know how much you're getting into your new venture, but with Connected Design, I'm very excited to, in some way, contribute to the content on Connected Design. And you and I have not done this before. I did do one for a previous company you worked for, but that was with a different editor there. And this is our first time. Of course, we've talked many times, but our first time doing a podcast.
No, that's awesome. Well, so for those, I say those that don't know you, I feel like everyone in this space knows who Ted Green is. But for those that may be listening that don't have a sense or maybe haven't had the curiosity to ask about your career history, talk about, if you can, I don't know how brief you can make it, because I know you've had some awesome stops along the way. Just walk us through kind of what you've done in your career to this point.
Yeah, I'm an old guy, so I've had a very long career. That's not what I was saying. I just want to point out that's not what I was trying to say. I realized as I was saying it, he's going to take this away, but that's not what I meant. I swear. Well, I'm going to do the Cliff's Note version because it can be very long. But I was a professional musician and had the great fortune to meet a girl that would become my future wife, and decided that traveling on the road was getting old. And so I took a job at a large-scale mass merchant type store, selling back then TV and radio is what we called it, and realized I really enjoyed that. Took a job from there, what I would call a step up, to a specialty audio shop. This is in Michigan, Lansing, East Lansing, Michigan, right across the street from Michigan State University, where I got my degree, and or where I went to school. And I was there for several years. Then I moved to New Jersey, got a job with a specialty manufacturer, a company called Adcom, made components and phono cartridges, and worked with them for a few years. And then I took, then from there, I went and took a job with Onkyo, which at the time was a top 10 electronics company, a top 5 audio company. First as the regional sales manager for the Eastern region. Then I was promoted to national sales manager. Then I was promoted to national sales and marketing manager, and then vice president of sales and marketing. I was with Onkyo for 14 years. And I left Onkyo to launch the Strata-con group. Strata-con is a conjunction of strategic concepts. And that is a marketing consulting company, working with organizations in the technology space. And I thought it was very clever with the name, but people couldn't remember the name or didn't know how to spell it. So I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll create a newsletter that I can send to them every week. I'll add value by putting in newsworthy stories and my commentary on it. And that was called Strata-gee, the phonetic spelling of strategy, STRATA-GEE, and worked like a charm and put me in front of a lot of people, and eventually kind of took on a life of its own, became a very big part of what I do. And now that is the bulk of really what I do is Strata-gee. I'm the chief content creator there. Yeah. And so there you go.
That's a good, I like those. That's a great sort of timeline and explanation, sort of how we got to where we are today. And it poses a question that I feel like I should be asking myself. This is almost as much of a podcast question as it is maybe an advice question. Given our current states and what I'm doing,
Right.
your decision to venture out on your own. I mean, some would look at you like Onkyo. That's stable and a very great place to be. What sort of led you to the decision like, hey, maybe I can do this on my own or want to do this on my own?
Yes. Imagine the look in my wife's eyes when I came home from work and said, oh, by the way, I quit my job today.
Yeah, I can. You know what's funny? I can imagine that because I did the same thing. Right?
Onkyo was a great job. I loved it. It was a fantastic education. Very smart, well-run company, great products, challenges every day. But after, 14 years of doing basically the same thing, I mean, there's always new challenges, but basically the same thing. We had a big meeting at the company. This is a true story. We had a big meeting at the company. We had a new head of our international division. So there was the sales division, which were the local sales operations around the world, of which we were the largest in the U.S. And then there's the factory division. And then between those two is something called the international division, which technically buys the products from the factory and sells them to the sales division. And we got a new leader for the sales division, and we had a big meeting. And I'd been through so many of those meetings and realized that, I was beginning to lose my enthusiasm, my joy, the taking on the mission of helping this executive understand our market and all over again. And it just so happened that one of the top executives for the parent company in Osaka happened to be in that meeting. And I asked him afterwards to meet me for a brief meeting. And I said, it just hit me in this meeting that we need to start talking about my exit. Well, you probably could have knocked him over with a feather. He never saw that coming. And to his credit, after some further discussion and, understanding that this was not just a momentary whim, that I was serious about this, they made me a great offer. So then the answer to your question is I didn't know where I was going when I made that decision. There was no grand vision. Wow. It's funny when I tell my story, it sounds like all very well planned. I mean, I even left out some steps for example, for AdCom, I was the Western Regional Sales Manager, but for Onkyo, I was the Eastern Regional Sales Manager, which of course made me a great candidate for the national position. So I can make it sound like it was a great master plan, but it was all basically serendipity. And so I had no plan for what to do or where to go. And the day after I left and the word got out that I left, one of our largest competitors reached out to me and wanted to talk to me about coming to work there.
Right.
And this is when I knew it was really real. I didn't even go talk to them because it was the same role, at a different company, same old wine, brand new bottle, right?
Yeah.
That's when I knew I really was ready to transition to something else. So now I had to figure out what is it that I wanted to do. And one of the frustrations I had, at Onkyo, we had a very large marketing budget. So, we were constantly pitched by Madison Avenue ad agencies. We could have had, any one of what we wanted. But one of the things that always frustrated me is that the general ad agencies know everything there is to know about advertising, but they don't understand our industry. And they especially don't understand somebody like an Onkyo, which is a specialty brand with a very carefully crafted position in the market. Yeah. So I would hire them, and, the spigot would start. We'd be writing checks. And for the first several months, I was just teaching them all about our industry, and then all about Onkyo and all about our role and why we take the position that we do. And before I could get decent idea one. So I thought, well, what about, I've learned a lot about advertising just for doing that for 14 years, and actually even longer than that. But I do have that industry knowledge. I can go to either new, young, emerging company or even an established company that feels like they could benefit from advice from somebody that understands the industry and understands the landscape and the map and the layout and who's doing what and what's their position, what's their role. And that's when I started Strata-gee Group as a marketing company to give advice. And for the most part, I was pretty spot on that there was a thirst for to be able to talk to somebody that spoke their language and understood their challenges and could help them develop a program that would move the ball down the field.
It's not to knock what the Madison Avenue companies. They obviously were big, still are big in many senses of the word. Yeah. But to your point of the specialty side of things, it's not cookie cutter what they do necessarily. Right. They want to learn the industry, but to your point, right? They're not ingrained in it. And it's something.
Well, one of the reasons they're large is because it's like, oh yeah, we do Sony, so we can do you. And I'm like, yeah, right. Well, we're nothing like Sony.
Yeah, but exactly.
Right. And so there we are. And now I got to help them understand. So, I mean, I had those conversations over and over again, and I almost never hired them. And if you know the way they work, and I'm pretty sure you do know how they work, you interview with their superstar team, and then you get some entry-level administrative assistant that is now your person there. Yep. It's how they operate. And, so we never really had great results on that route. Right. It was better for us to take a smaller boutique company that maybe, has done one or two companies in the industry, and then just help them understand the difference between what we do and what they do. Seemed to be a faster path to better ideas, and
not everyone gets the Don Draper.
It's just
it's not how it is. Don Draper comes in, makes the pitch to hire them, and then you get so I don't even know, they don't even give the names. It's like the uncredited actor, the extra that's in there sitting at the desk with the typewriter.
Oh, literally, they'll send an intern. They'll send an unpaid intern in. But the Don Drapers are spectacular, and those pitches were always impressive. Mm-hmm. But it would only take a few questions for me to realize they really don't know what we're all about. And so, so at any rate, I mean, obviously they're big, they're successful, they're $1 billion company. So, they know what they're doing, but it just wasn't right for us.
Right. And right for this space necessarily, because this space, if you get it what the heart of what it is and what it does, whether you're talking about the manufacturing side, the dealer side, like every which side, it's all custom. It's in the name, custom integration, right? So there has to be a certain level of white glove handle and care to the messaging, to I mean, you can get down to the projects where the space is installing. Like it has to be cohesive in that way, and it can't just be some sort of surface level message that you're trying to deliver. Because but I think everyone in this space reads through it.
Right. But I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I take nothing away from them. They're very good at what they do. Yeah. The only advantage I could bring is I could get my client down the path faster because I, understood the industry and understood all of those kinds of elements and dynamics. Yeah. But they're obviously very good at what they do, or they wouldn't be big.
Time savings to the industry too. So you talk about a service and finding a need and addressing it. That's awesome to be able to do that and bet on yourself too. Like that's huge to figure it out.
But maybe the better question, Rob, is why did I decide to put more emphasis on strategy and less on Strata-gee?
Yeah, I'm getting there, because I know the trajectory of kind of what you've done. You mentioned it, right? Is you started with that on the marketing side, but then we get to you need to solve a problem for yourself, right? And get the name out there, help people understand it, remember it, right? And so there is the marketing side of things and kind of what you're trying to build there, but. The newsletter, now I know marketing, writing, communications, they're all kind of relevant and involve the same sort of skills, techniques, things like that, storytelling at the end of the day. So,
Right.
was that something that the journalistic side of things is that your background, or how did you purely get into it to try to get the name out there?
So creative writing was something that I always was involved in almost my whole life. I was not a journalism student. I was a telecommunications student at Michigan State University. But as part of their general education, right, I had a creative writing class and always did really well there. So writing is something I like to do. And I think that, but ironically, if you think back, do you remember when you and I first met?
I have to imagine it was an HTSA meeting.
Right. So that was, HTSA was a client.
16? Something
like that. Yeah. HTSA was a client of my marketing company.
Yep.
So that's where we first met.
Yeah.
The transition came because of, a couple of things. One is, so when I was in retail, I got to go back, I guess, a little bit. Go back to go forward. Yeah. When I was in retail, I actually was a buyer for some of the accessory products in our store. One of the things that used to always frustrate me is that it was so hard for me to get, real data on products. And for my company, when I choose a product and I buy it, it's kind of on me. Yeah. And if that turns out to be less than we expected, well, that's coming back to me. And it's very difficult in an industry like technology, which is a very noisy industry, lots of advertising and lots of, especially back in those days, lots of trade news, tons of trade news, many long gone media properties right now. But I always felt like I wasn't getting the straight story, right? So that stayed with me. And when I started writing the newsletter to promote the business, originally Strata-gee was part of Strata-con, really has become its own thing now. I wanted to be really sort of true to the reader. So my commitment is, to my reader, to give them the full story, the full picture, the positives, the negatives, and then you decide what makes sense to you. I don't know if I can say it surprises me, but obviously a lot of companies would mistake me for traditional trade media. Nothing against them, but I was not traditional trade media. And they would discover to their error that I would print the stuff they said.
Yeah. Right. Like,
right?
Oh, hey. Right. Oh, how funny how that works.
Yeah. And I would ask probing questions, and I would ask sometimes tough questions. And I would look for the outer limits of what they're doing. Right. Not because, for any reason other than I want the full picture. I want the whole story. I want to be able to tell my readers the whole story. And I've had many angry executives threaten me, this, that, and the other thing. And I really don't care because, if you're angry at me for printing the truth, well, then, that's not on me. That's on you. How do you not want to tell your customers the truth?
Right.
And what matters to me is that, my readers, get the real story as best as I can tell it. So I was interested in creative writing. I was interested in good journalism, read the Washington Post, read the New York Times, Wall Street Journal. And so I tried to dig deeper, get more information. And the big difference with Strata-gee is that it really it benefits from my multi-decades of experience. And I try to bring that to the table too. Yeah. So I'm kind of like the reader's unpaid employee.
Yeah.
Who it wants to get them the real story, the full picture, and here's why we should do it or why we shouldn't do it, and whatever. And so that's my mission. My mission is the reader, very focused on that.
Yeah.
And
well, it gets to what I like about your answer there too, and kind of sharing that story. Thank you. One, two is like it gets to exactly why you started Strata-con is exactly why you started Strata-gee. It addresses something that you saw that wasn't being solved for, and you created the solution. And in doing so, happened to discover a space that I'm sure you knew it at the time and continue to, as we all do. It needed that support, right? It needed that sort of a differentiated view on things and way of going about it. Because what I love in there too is that you said it, right? That you got mistaken for traditional trade media, and you're not that. And like I want you to dive into that a little bit too, because in talking about your career history and kind of the experiences you've had, you've also gotten to see trade media evolve. So talk about that evolution and sort of what it was, what it has become, and the just sort of your thoughts and opinions there. I'd love to get your take on it.
Well, you're probably better qualified to talk about the transition in trade media than I am. I mean, I can give you kind of an outsider's perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I think that to me is just as important, because you mentioned it. You're the reader, right? You've seen sort of how you're digesting the content, no matter the strategy behind it, how that's being done. But you've gotten to see sort of how the coverage of the channel has evolved over time. And I think, to me, that's more interesting to me as someone, who's back in the space, but also just to understand your take on it and kind of how it has evolved.
Well, first of all, I don't ever want to say anything that makes me think that I look down on trade media. I don't at all. I mean, trade journalism, you and I have had this conversation. Yeah. It's a tough business, especially over the years as budgets have got cut. And pretty soon now, all of a sudden, the reporter whose job is to find and investigate and report stories, now all of a sudden, they got to be a photojournalist. They got to take pictures. They've got to, their role that more, and a lot of the editors were cut. And so there's no backstop for them. And there's way fewer resources. They're the resource. Now they got to do social media postings, and they got to, it's really, I feel for them. It's their job has gotten much tougher, and their pay hasn't gone up as much as their responsibilities have gone up. And so, I feel real tough for them. But trade, maybe one of the best examples I can give, go back a few years. Do you remember when 3D TV was sort of the big thing?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it was right around the time I came into the space, moved back to Philly and started, with that previous employer, mid 2010s, roughly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I was immediately skeptical, did a lot of homework, had a lot of great deep sources at major companies, and just collected a ton of data and really realized that this was a kind of a gimmick that the industry was going to use. After spending billions of dollars developing it, it essentially came down to just sort of a gimmick they were going to use to try to sell TVs. And I took a somewhat of an anti-tone against 3D TV. Well, I got a call from an editor, I'm not going to say who, but a very prominent editor, somebody I know, we all know, who was angry at me and really took me to task and said, you're supposed to be supporting this industry, right? And,
right.
You should be promoting this. And what does it matter with you? Don't you understand, what your role is here? And I said, my answer to this editor was, that might be your role, but that's not my role. My role is to tell the truth and to use my judgment and to explain why I feel the way I do about it. Sorry about that.
Good. We got our sources, right?
I lost my train of thought. Where was I?
The coverage of 3D TV, your role. You weren't fulfilling your role.
Yeah, I remember talking to one of the big companies, one of the biggest of the big companies, and asking them why, why they were so confident that they were adding upscaling to their TVs. So and real time 3D generation technology. So what was your thinking? He said, well, because we want people to watch all 3D all the time. I said, so let me get this right. You want my 85-year-old mother and father in the morning eating their Cheerios with goggles on, watching Good Morning America in 3D? He said, yes. I said, I don't see that happening. Yeah. I just don't see that happening. Anyway, long story short, I went back to that editor and said, that's your role. That's not my role. My role is to be honest, truthful, but it demonstrates kind of an ethic in the trade media, which is part of it is to promote the industry and promote their initiatives and promote what they're doing. Yep. In my view, this might sound strange, but in my view, my job is I'm happy to promote products I believe in, but I feel like I do a better service to the industry by telling them that I see them stepping off into the curb in front of a bus. And so I want to pull them back before they make this huge mistake.
Yeah.
And, look, I'm not always right, but that time I was right. And 3D basically kind of went away and is not a thing now. So that's one of the differences between what I view a strategy's role and what I view trade media's role. But that doesn't mean that the trade media role is not helpful. They're very good at collecting data. This model's coming out, it's shipping then. That's really, that's important for dealers to have access to that as well. But that part of their role is just not part of what I do. And it shows the difference. So when an executive would say to me, Jesus, you printed my answers to your questions. I said, number one, you didn't say they were off the record. I don't publish off the record comments, right? You didn't say it was off the record. So yeah, I asked the question, you answered it. I printed it. What did you expect? Right. And what he expected was the wink nod, right? You're trade media, so you will not print anything that makes me look bad. You'll help me look good. And that's a difference between what trade media does and what I do. I'm happy to make you look good if you are good, but I'm also happy to print if, like I said to one guy, if you say something brilliant, I'll print it. If you say something stupid, I'll print it. So right. You want me to print your brilliance?
Yeah.
Tell me brilliant stuff.
It's not so hard. When you put it that, it's like black and white in that regard. And, it's kind of a combination too of I know about a little over a decade's worth of experience here. Like it's a combination of the things you're explaining that I think have bogged down the media side of things, the trade media side of things, right? We are asked to do a lot more than the trade media journalists of 10, 15, 20 years ago, which in tune becomes, these outlets effectively becoming press release regurgitators to fill the pages that they need content for. And in turn, that steals away the time from being able to do the work of the deep dives and the investigative-ish type stuff that, really benefits the channel, the reader, the industry, just in short. It doesn't allow for that to happen at the same rate or to the same benefit. And it stinks, right? Like you want to be able to do that. And yes, there's great research and surveys and everything like that out there, but that sort of independent eye, which that's another word that I want to dive into with us, that doesn't necessarily exist to the same extent that it had or maybe ever did, I think in this space, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely right. Spot on. And I think it's all part of, look, let's talk globally, journalism. It's a changing world. And I've watched some of the biggest media companies going through all kinds of transformations. And, and I've been a New York Times subscriber for decades and decades and decades, and I've watched them change. They laid off 2 or 3 layers of editors. They used to have stories go through multiple stages of editing, and it's part of why the journalism was so spectacular. But the business side of the business is difficult, as you are about to learn.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody goes into journalism to get rich, but you can definitely make a living. And the economics really get tough, and then also the change in online media versus print media and the different dynamics there, and then the influence of social media and the pressure to drive eyeballs and to maybe do things that are not very savory, but in order to do that, in order to drive eyeballs,
right.
It's hard to resist that. And when I first started this, I did, as I always do, I did a ton of research. And, I learned that, content was a growing, at that time, earlier on, is a highly growing area. And, but if you really break down to what content sells, right, it's listicles. It's short, 300 words or less listicles. It's,
That's why BuzzFeed got so hot.
Three ways to make your first $1 million.
Yeah.
5 keys to better sex. Right. I mean, it's this kind of
right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so today's world, we have more content than ever before. There's just a ton of content. And now with AI, we're about to have a tsunami of artificially generated content. It's going to make it harder for all of us legit people in media. It's going to be tough. Although my strategy, not to promote my name, my strategy is to stay committed to not AI, artificial intelligence, AI, authentic insights. I think that what this will do is this will create demand for more authentic insight. And if you look at how I read all of this on how to do content, and then I broke all the rules. My stories are sometimes 2,000-3,000 words. I rarely do listicles, and I do a lot of deep dives. Like I don't know how avid you are reading strategy, but I do. Actually, I'm a little surprised. I've watched my statistics very closely. I'm even a little surprised about some of these things. So I'll do quarterly earnings report for major industry brands. And I mean, these are, if you've ever done one of them, these things are, it can be an 80, 90 page single space document full of, financial and legal mumbo jumbo.
Right.
And my stories on those just get amazing readership. And then another one that I like to do is legal coverage of lawsuits, right? Sonos sues Denon, right? And that's a 3-year-long litigation. I can't even tell you how many tens or hundreds of thousands of pages of filings in that lawsuit. And I do that. And again, those get very high readership. So I'm probably addressing a very small segment of the greater industry. The advice I read on content is probably correct for the mass market, if you will, or consumer market. But that segment is, they're very, my average time on page is like 3 minutes, the internet average is like, 27 seconds or something.
Shorter than a goldfish's lifespan or something like that.
Yeah. And the story I like to tell about this is literally one day my service provider called me and said, "Hey, tell me again what it is you do, and started asking me all these questions. And I'm like, what's going on here? Am I in trouble or something? No, you have the lowest unsubscribe rate of any of our customers. Now, this is a big service provider, right?
Yeah.
You have the lowest unsubscribe rate of any of our customers, and we're trying to figure out why.
That's awesome.
So
it's a testament to what you do. That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I have a smaller community than some of these larger media groups, but I have a committed, loyal community, and they read what I write, and they apparently appreciate that. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it kind of gets at the heart of what I think trade media was supposed to be or is supposed to be. But somewhere along the line has, like we've been talking about, sort of lost its way. So I guess maybe an obvious way of asking, but what do you see is missing today? Like, where are those gaps, or what are the kind of the biggest challenge that the space faces? Maybe it's the editors face, or just the kind of the trade media channel as a whole faces.
Yeah, I wish I could give them advice, but their world is a very tough world, and all of those things that we've talked about, the economics of it. I mean, a lot of people are still struggling with it. And I think that, I guess the only advice I could give anybody starting any business would be to try to really get inside the head of your reader and really understand, what's missing in their media consumption. What are they looking for? And sometimes, and you have to be careful how you ask that question. Another story I tell, and this is true also. When I was going to start Strata-gee, I called up all my friends. I don't think we knew each other then, so I didn't call you. But I called up all my friends, and I said, hey, I've got this idea. I'm going to start this newsletter doing industry news stories, with my take on them. And what do you think about this? And my friends, right, all said, oh, God, don't do it. Don't do it. Yeah. What else is there? There's all kinds of trade media out there already. You're just going to get embarrassed and, blah, 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 blah. Well, you know what? I had to dig deeper, and I had to understand their perspective. I had to understand what they were looking for. And then they also are, there was a great interview many, many, many years ago. Inc. magazine interviewed Steve Jobs. Mm. And the question they asked him was, they asked him to explain the product planning role or product planning process at Apple. Do you just, go out and get some panels of customers and ask them what they want? And he said, I can't do that because they can only answer those questions based on what they know, right? Mm-hmm. We have to be able to extrapolate out where technology can go, what that would bring. We have to understand their needs and desires, but they can't answer those questions because they have no idea what's possible. Right. This is, by the way, this is like the number one topic. I bring this up a lot with custom integrators. You can't go to a customer and sit down with your clipboard and say, what do you want?
Right.
They
have an idea in their head, right?
What's available? Well, yeah. I need a TV, right? And I want music, but they don't know what's available. And so you gotta walk them around your experience center. You gotta let them see what's possible, what's available, and then you can sit down and talk to them. But you have to dig deeper. I mean, this is life. I think that if there's one thing I've observed in my career, when a company is failing, any kind of company, when it's struggling or failing, usually there's a common mistake they all make, which is they go, this used to work before, so we just have to do it more. And we have to do it faster and harder, but we have to do that same thing more.
There's no evolution.
Which just gets into bankruptcy faster.
Yeah, right. There's no desire to adapt, evolve, change with, sort of those external forces or, where the industry's heading. There's
I think people are creatures of habit, and that's what they know, and that's how they've done it. They've always done it that way, and it's hard to break out of that box.
For sure, for sure. And, I mean, it kind of, too, I think begs to, finding that story from the integrator's perspective with their customer, understanding them and getting at the heart of what they want, not necessarily what they need. Helps you to that answer of what they need in that system. It sounds like I'm talking a lot bigger than what I am, but I'm getting at what they need in their system, in their home. But then when you do look more broadly, it kind of, I think, addresses or starts to at least point to what to kind of turn the conversation to connected design. What we're hoping to do here, right, is to get at those conversations and explain to, integrators like, how to have those conversations with the other industry professionals that you don't know, that they don't know technology necessarily the way you do. They may not care to. But at the same time, the technology has become such a big part of the home, right? These home systems, the control, the automation, beyond just AV, and the lighting, the energy. When you start adding all those things in, then you're starting to speak their language, right? And it's how do you have those conversations, and that's kind of what I'm hoping to accomplish is just have the conversation. Figure out how to have it with the architect, the designer, the home builder, and just put you in a position, or this industry in a position to, work better together and provide that promise of a brighter future for you, for your business, because you can expand your partnerships, get involved with more people, get those right into the projects earlier. I think that's how long have we been hearing about that? Integrators that want to get into the project earlier, but they're delayed because, technology is an afterthought. Well, the technology you're thinking about is the TV, is the amp, is the speakers in the wall, not the areas that do get you there earlier. So it's just, that's kind of where I'm hoping to go. And I hope that gives like a little bit of insight into what connected design is or can be. But that actually, and me talking about it kind of opens it up, right?
What you're really talking about is being like a cross-pollinator.
Yeah. Exactly.
So in other words, or a connecting point, really, for bringing people together. And I think that there have been well-intentioned but unproductive efforts at that from others in the industry. But it's a worthy goal, and your objectivity could be the catalyst to make it work. So I'll tell you a real quick story.
Yeah.
Several years ago, I was still with Onkyo. I went to the big builder show out in Vegas.
Yep.
And I was kind of on a covert mission. And my mission was to talk to as many builders as I could talk to and take their temperature on the technology industry. And I have to tell you now, it's very unscientific.
Yeah.
But I mean, literally, standing in line to get a hot dog or something, I would just strike up conversations with people around me. I probably had 20 or 30 such conversations. And it's a builder show, so they're all builders. And some work with production builders and some work with custom builders. We were more interested with the custom builders. And I would just ask open-ended questions. Are you guys involved in building smart homes, or do you do that in-house? Do you seek out partners? Tell me all about it. And what I came back to and reported to my company was, this is a shit show.
Yeah. They have no idea.
They all hate technology integrators. They not just dislike them.
Right. They loathe
They
them.
hate
There's a
them.
loathing.
They had a bad experience with one or two, and they're flaky and they don't show up when they're supposed to, and that blah 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 blah. And for the builder, when a subcontractor drops the ball, it hurts their relationship with the client, and they can't let that happen.
Right.
So some builders solved it by hiring an integrator, a person or a couple of people, and doing their own integration from the builder themselves. But what a lot of them have is hands off. A lot of them will say to the customer, if, there's lots of good companies, open
Go
up
find one
your
you
yellow
trust. Right.
pages
Right. Wow.
and give them a call.
Yeah.
So, and this again, this is many years ago, but it shocked us. And I also went and talked to CEDIA, the trade association, about this.
Yep.
And I still now, many, many years later are talking to them about it. And they're making efforts to do that. And Daryl Friedman connects, at least at his level, with a lot of these associations.
Yep.
It's a hard thing to do.
Right.
It really is a hard thing to do. But that's an example. The example you gave for connected design, which, by the way, welcome back, Connected Design. I mean,
thank you.
We should have a launch party or something. I'd come to it.
Heck yeah.
I'm excited because, look, there's room for good ideas in the technology industry, trade media, B2B media, and of course, I know you, and I know you'll do a great job. So.
Thank you.
So welcome back. But there's a great opportunity for somebody to come in and try those ideas. It all comes down to just understanding the market and understanding the needs.
Yeah.
And, and then applying the pressure to move it in that direction.
Right. And that's I think exactly where, if it was easy, I don't think it would be rewarding either. Right. So I think there's something to that of seeing how difficult it's been and hoping to move that needle a little bit. At least,
you gotta really understand what your goal is. Yeah. You gotta take the long vision, the long view.
Yep.
And don't let naysayers or complainers drive you off your path.
Yep.
Because they don't see that picture, they don't see that vision, and and so it is definitely a doable thing.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, and the support's always needed for one, but I'll take it. So looking forward to hopefully building this thing, and I don't think to your everything we've talked about, the mindset and everything. There more. I think you said it during one of our in between phone calls here of just kindred spirits or brothers from separate generation type deals. So it's
right.
I appreciate that, and why I was looking forward to having this conversation on the record conversation, because it kind of just gets to how I don't think we're very different in how we approach things and want to just better the industry, right? And work on behalf of everyone involved to, change sort of the feelings around the trade media space, but also how, we go about it and what we look to do. And I have a lot of fun doing it. And if I wasn't having fun, I don't think I would be doing it crazy enough to want to do it in this way. So,
I mean, at the bottom line, why do I do this? I'm not doing it for the money. I mean, I make a living, but I do it because I love it. I love doing it. And, and I hope to be having some kind of an influence or an impact on the industry. Yeah,
no, I appreciate that for sure. And, this was a great conversation, man. I know, we could probably have more, keep going. I could allow you to turn the tables truly and start questioning me. And, I also understand your time on site, time on podcasts, get it impacted the longer they go. So what we should plan, I think we could plan to do it again. I would love to have you on again and, give you the chance to, take a Connected Design podcast and flip the script a little bit. If you want to pose the questions directly to me, we could have some fun doing that. But
sounds good to me.
No, this was fantastic, man. And I appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you out there.
All right, buddy. Sounds good. Congratulations. And, hopefully everybody signs up for Connected Design.
Thank you.